And now I leave the floor to General Camporini. He is the Vice President of the Italian Institute of International Affairs and is one of the most respected experts in Europe of geopolitics. He has been studying here in Naples at the Aeronautic Academy before going to Trieste. He wanted to stress this, and he has been for many years the head of our of the Chief Defense General Staff. Please, General Camporini, we would like to hear from you some consideration of the sceneries which are so important for the international trade and for the shipping.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me state that it is a real pleasure to be here to share with you some of my views. I'm very grateful for that, also for being hosted in such a beautiful place. Let me start by saying that today I have a very easy and difficult task altogether. Easy because I am facing an audience which is fully aware that what's going on beyond the national boundaries has a direct influence on the daily life of every single citizen. Whenever I have to speak to a different audience, this is my first task, to let people understand that what's going on in the Horn of Africa is relevant to the daily life of the housekeeper who has to go shopping and buying the food for every day. And it is a difficult task to let people understand that. So this is for sure a different case here because you are fully aware that the globe is one and we are operating in the globe. And whatever happens anywhere has a direct influence on things you are doing, both as enterprises and as individuals. But it is a difficult task because, of course, since you are aware, I have a more difficult task to elaborate things which you already know. One first consideration. I listened very carefully to the discussion today, this morning. And this was for me another evidence of a tendency which is typical of the human being. Because all I listened to was referred to problems which exist within a given scenario, and the scenario is given. Nothing will change according to the elaborations I heard. This is the typical temptation of the human being. In any time of history, we were missing, the human beings are missing the capability to imagine the future. And we were always taken by surprise, always. This was the case in 1914. Only a few months before the war, you could read very intelligent scholars stating that it was impossible to think of a conflict within Europe because there was so much interest, common interest between Germany, UK, France. So it was absolutely impossible that things would go differently. And after a few months, we had the first genocide, because it was a genocide. 1926, did anybody think that Germany would become again a threat within a few years? 1989, in Moscow, in July, and this is a witness I had from a very good friend of mine, Franco Venturini, the columnist of Corriere della Sera, who was the journalist of the Corriere della Sera in Moscow at that time. And I asked him, well, what were the signs of the crumbling empire? And he said there were no signs whatsoever. No one in Moscow in July 1989 could imagine what would happen only a few weeks later. This is to say that we are facing a world which is not standing. We are facing a world which is in a rapid pace of changing. And with your activity, you should be aware of that and prepare mentally for that in order to be flexible enough to face the new situations. We are in a present situation where all the international order is put at stake. Think of what's going on in Ukraine. Think of what's going on in Iraq, Syria, the whole of the northern shore of Africa, the Indian Ocean, the South China Sea. I can perceive that we are facing very dark clouds in the future. And either we are ready to face the challenges in order to exploit the good things which we can exploit, or we are going to have a real troubled future, which is for sure of extreme importance for those who have ships around the world. Do you still believe that the freedom of navigation will continue as we believe, as we are accustomed to? I do not think this is true. I know about the ambitions of China to fully control the South China Sea. I see what are the new regulations issued unilaterally by India about the ships which transit in the area. So we should be prepared to confront ourselves with a new world. A world where the balance of power is changing totally. Daily there are signs of that. The United States are no longer willing to provide their coverage to the rest of the world. What they are doing today in Iraq is, in my view, the evidence. The president has been pushed to do something about the ISIS growth, and he's doing something which is absolutely symbolic. The bombing which is done today in Iraq is not changing a bit of the operation on the ground. So this is, in my view, the evidence that the willingness of the US to be engaged in the rest of the world's troubles is fading away. The reasons, well, they are the fatigue of what's been going on in the last decade, Afghanistan, Iraq, in the beginning in 2003. So for sure this is a good reason. But there are also basic economical reasons. It is of common knowledge that the US are not only independent now from the energetic point of view, but they are exporting energy. The importance of the Middle East for Washington is due only to the fact that some big companies, American companies, have some interest. But it is no longer a vital issue for the US. So they are retreating and leaving Europe to take care of their own business. And Europe is not ready to do that. The solidarity between the European countries is diminishing, is not increasing. We assist a kind of renationalization of the policies with the added element that the military instrument to be used to support diplomacy is less and less efficient in all the European countries, even those which have a very long-standing tradition in military business. The UK has given up the air carrier capability for at least 15 years. They are now waiting for the new carrier to come into service. It will take some years. They are reducing their number of troops, ground troops, to 78,000 soldiers. Taking into account the organization, the training, the logistics, this means that they will no longer be capable of supporting a strong military mission abroad. And this is true for UK, which is spending 2% of its GNP for defense. Imagine what can be for Italy. We are spending less than 1. Germany, 1.3. And in Germany, we also have to add the clear reluctance to take the lead in the international business for Europe. So Europe has been left alone, and something is happening in the Middle East, which is vital for our energy supply, as well as Russia is vital, Russia with whom we are unable to reach a decent agreement on the future. So we are facing a period where the challenges in international business will be extremely severe, with, let me say, my personal opinion, with a leadership which is not a leadership. I cannot identify it, again, it's my personal view, so take it as a personal view only, but I believe that today in Europe we have no leader at all. There's no leader in France, no leader in UK, not leader even in Germany, because I see the German government looking at what's happening next week, not at what happened next year, while China is looking at what will happen in the next 30 years. Recently, I presented a book about the education of the prince, how we, the scholars, should try and raise the awareness and capabilities of our leaders. And I made a comment, I said, leaders means someone who leads. Today I see my political bosses who daily open the paper, read the latest polls on every single argument, and decide accordingly. So they are not leader, they are led. This is a situation we have to face. We should be worried about that. And we scholars, you operators, entrepreneurs, we have a duty. We have to raise the awareness of our political milieu in order to let them understand their responsibilities so that we can, in a way, shape our future. We are not doing that. If we are not shaping the future will shape us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Camporini, for your very brief but very interesting introduction on the international affairs situation, which is an element of major importance for our